Good day, beautiful people. This is Natalie Silva with Life Treasures and Golden Moments. Welcome back to my podcast. I hope everybody's doing well out there and getting along all right. It's been a rough season for all of us and quite a journey we all have been on, but we're doing our best to make it through. Now, this weekend is considered the first holiday of summer, and our country's opened up again, and I hope everything goes well. It is also Memorial Day, a time to honor our heroes and to show gratitude and thankfulness that they sacrificed their lives for us so that we can live in a free country. Sometimes I think we forget what freedom really is and how lucky we are to live in such a good country. But freedom, living in the United States, we have a choice. We can make choices. We also have a voice, and we can live in peace. Sometimes it's easy to remember that, and sometimes it's easy to forget it when we're going through crises like we are now. But we have to remember the gifts that we have, and a lot of the good gifts we have are because of these veterans that have sacrificed their lives for us. And we want to say thank you. So today I want to share one story with you that's called The Cell Phone. And this was penned by Arthur Ashe. He said, "True heroism is remarkably sober, very undramatic. It is not the urge to surpass all others at whatever cost, but the urge to serve others at whatever cost." And the story today was authored by a lovely lady that wanted to share the story with us. Beautiful thoughts. Her name was Diana Martin, and I think you'll enjoy it. Called The Cell Phone. My husband and I were having a good night. We had just seen a comedy, emptied an entire large bucket of popcorn and a big bag of M&Ms, and we laughed like two carefree kids. As we crossed the parking lot and contemplated our next high-calorie activity, I noticed something on the asphalt. "Oh, wait," I said, and broke free from his hand. "What's that?" "It looks like a wallet," he said, jangling his car keys and watching as I inspected it. "Nope, it's a cell phone." But not just any cell phone. It was the most expensive model on the market. When I opened the case, the phone was locked, so I couldn't scroll through the contacts to find the owner. "You want to leave it at the ticket booth?" he asked. "Are you kidding? No way. I'd rather keep it safe and find the owner myself." As we walked to our car, my husband was grumbling about the responsibility I was taking on. But I had seen the picture on the screen, and it was of a young soldier, probably the owner's daughter. I wanted to reunite the phone with its owner. Once we settled in and drove off, the cell phone vibrated. When I opened the case, the smiling soldier background lit up again. It was an incoming text, but I couldn't respond because the phone was locked. Instead of driving straight home, we went to a nearby gas station to fill up, which was clearly my husband's way of killing time. He really wanted me to get rid of this phone. And then it happened. The phone rang. The screen said home. Home was calling, and I would finally find the owner. Hello, I have your phone," I said happily, secretly excited to give someone the news that a good Samaritan had found his phone. The gentleman on the other end of the line was ecstatic, and he thanked me for finding his phone. He asked if we would return to the movie theater, where he would meet us, and I agreed, and he thanked me repeatedly. With a light heart, I ended the call. "I told you it was the father of a soldier," I said triumphantly. I smiled to myself as we turned out of the gas station parking lot and headed back toward the theater. Getting an idea, I reached into my purse and found a scrap of paper. On it I scribbled a sentence, "God bless you, your soldier," and drew a heart beside it. I slipped the note inside the cell phone case. Back at the theater, we found a big burly man waiting for us. "Thank you so much," he said with relief when I approached. I thought I was going to have to turn it off, cancel it, the whole thing. My heart swelled with joy for making him so happy. Privately, I couldn't wait for him to read my little blessing for his soldier. "It's my pleasure," I said, and then watched as the man waved happily and fairly skipped to his own car. He thanked me at least 3 more times. The man drove in one direction and we drove in the other. "You could tell he's a good person," my husband said as we headed toward the freeway, his tone suggesting that he'd surrendered to the righteousness of what we had just done. "Oh, yes," I said, sighing, allowing myself to feel good as I remembered the man's grateful smile. I don't know what it is about doing a good deed, but the person doing the deed always seems to feel better, even better than the beneficiary. We hadn't driven 4 blocks when we heard a horn blaring. I pressed the button to roll down my window, and it was the same man, speeding to catch up with us. He had his window down, too. "Thank you so much for your note," he hollered as he drove alongside our truck. I absolutely beamed. "Oh, you're so welcome," I yelled back, giving him my best Forrest Gump wave. If happiness manifested itself as helium, I had floated right out the window. He continued, "I appreciate it so much. The soldier is my daughter," he yelled out his window. "She died October 1st, so thank you so much for the message." In that instant, my helium was gone. All of the previous euphoric feelings I experienced into unspeakable grief and love for a total stranger, they were gone. "I'm so sorry," I yelled back, my smile gone, my eyes filling with tears. It had been 6 months for him. "Thank you. She was 20. Thank you." He waved, still smiling, and drove off. I stared out the window until my husband quietly pushed the button to close it from the driver's side. We were both too stunned to speak. Inside our car, if it weren't for the road noise, the only sound would have been my soft weeping, caused by the quick and profound grief I experienced through a stranger's loss. We have a 20-year-old, and I put myself in this man's shoes. "Wow," my husband finally said. "Why do you think he needed to tell you that?" I knew. As a mother, I knew. "It's his way to keep her memory alive," I said, wiping the tears off my face with both hands. "He wanted to talk about her. It's his way of dealing with his grief." And in that moment, I knew why I had found that cell phone. It was a reason so much bigger than saving someone $500. I was directed into the man's circle of healing, a stranger through a lost cell phone, and reminded again of the sacrifices of those who serve our great nation. This next story that I'd like to share with you was authored by Dixon Hill. It's called The Sargent's Boots. And it's a story of something that happened to this young man, and it gave him a direction for his life during his journey. Fort Bragg, North Carolina, summer of 1988. I was a sergeant and one of 500 soldiers signed up for one of the Army's toughest tests, a 6-month-long Special Forces qualification course to become a Green Beret. Most of the guys were infantrymen, macho football player types, with the kind of build you see on the cover of a fitness magazine. They were used to hoofing for miles with heavy field packs. Like me, I was chunky and out of shape. My background was military intelligence, where I basically sat at a desk all day and analyzed information in high school. I was first string on the chess team, if that helps you get the picture. I wasn't surprised when no one would give me the time of day. Why bother with someone who had washout written all over him? So I was startled when Sergeant John Hall came up to me the day after the grueling land navigation test, a sort of preview of what lay ahead. Each of us had to hike alone in the dead of night in full gear through miles of rough hills and swampland, without the benefit of trails or even a flashlight, and it finished just after dawn. John had been one of the first finishers. Naturally, I'd been practically last. I was still exhausted from the ordeal. "Hi," My name is John, he said, sticking his hand out. John looked to be in his early 20s. He had a down hollow accent. Later I learned he was from deep in the hills of West Virginia. A trainee like me, he was the most gung-ho soldier in our outfit. His uniform fit like a custom suit, and his black standard-issue combat boots were buffed like a new pair of dress shoes. I could tell he felt pity for me, and I wanted none of it. I'm Dixon Hill, I said. You don't have to talk to me. I understand why guys are ignoring me. I figured it was pointless to try to change people's minds about me, but I knew the truth. I bled army green. As a kid, I loved listening to my dad's stories about serving as an army engineer in the Philippines after World War II. I joined the Arizona National Guard at 18. I had always dreamed of being a Green Beret. Of course, John didn't know all of that, but I relaxed a little when he smiled and said, "You'll be here tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that, until you graduate. You got it in you, I can tell. Just keep doing the right thing." Training school was even tougher than advertised, and there was more to it than just physical strength. One day I had to make a camp in the woods and then kill and cook a caged animal that would feed me for 2 days. I chose a rabbit. I attempted to roast it with little success. "You should have picked a chicken," John told me, "and you should have boiled it." Boiling faster. I learned that from my daddy when we were hunting. He hiked back to his campsite and brought me some of his meal. I was chagrined but grateful. People dropped out left and right. Some failed the field test, others collapsed from the physical strain, and some flat out quit. At the halfway point, just 175 of us remained out of the 500. One day, after parachuting into a drop zone, one of the football types eyed me and snorted, "Hill, you're still here?" I still wasn't in very good shape. During my brutal fear-gear hike through the North Carolina hills, I slumped against a tree. I wanted to sleep for a solid week. John sat down. "How you doing?" he asked. "This is the hardest thing I've ever done," I said. "I'm not sure I can make it." John looked at me, and then he did something funny. He bent down and patted his shiny combat boots. "We all use little tricks to keep us going," he said. "Mine are these boots. They ain't made for standing still. They're God's reminder to me to keep moving when times are tough. You need to just keep doing the next right thing." Pretty soon I felt myself getting stronger. I looked forward to physical tests. Guys began to eat with me and shoot the breeze. Slowly but surely, I sensed that I was being accepted and that I belonged. Now that I could keep up, I ran with John in the drills. One of our last was the rucksack run test, a torturous 15-mile sprint through the hill country wearing heavy backpacks. We had 3.5 hours to finish. John ran directly in front of me. All day I passed guys who collapsed in their tracks, but you were supposed to keep running, no matter what. I cleared the last rise. The finish line was 15 yards ahead. "Made it," I started to say. Then suddenly John went down like he'd been shot. "I have to stop. I have to help him. I have to help him up." But then I remembered our orders. I jumped over John and completed the race. It was only then that I looked back. John was still laying there. A medic raced down the path. I prayed as the medic administered CPR. "Come on, big guy." John didn't revive. He was dead of a massive heart attack. My grief turned into guilt. The bottoms of my boots were probably the last things John had seen. I should have stopped. The Army flew John's body home to his family in West Virginia. Our unit held its own memorial service. I marched into Fort Bragg Special Warfare Center Chapel, my mind spinning. If I had stopped to help, could I have saved him? The medic told me no. Still, I couldn't forgive myself. The pastor put John's boots spit shine to a mirror finish on the chapel altar. An M16 rifle stood upside down between them. A green beret rested on top of the rifle. The Army had awarded it to John posthumously. Lord, I prayed, I can't live with this possibility that I didn't do the right thing. The pastor spoke movingly, but my mind drifted. I thought about the time John shared his boiled chicken with me. The company commander rose. We stood at attention as the captain called roll. Here, sir. Soldiers barked back as we went down the line. Then the captain shouted, John Hall. Silence. The captain paused, then continued, Dixon Hill. Here, sir. On it went until the last name was called. Again the captain said, Is Sergeant John Hall of West Virginia here? One more silence. His voice wavering, the captain shouted, Last call, Sergeant John Hall. I stood ramrod straight, trying to ignore the stinging in my eyes. My friend is gone. Do I have the strength to go on? Just then a flash of light came. Brilliant light. The light reflected from John's boots on the altar. It was so bright I couldn't tear my eyes away. The effect made the boots glow, and its glow engulfed me. I heard John say again, God had the Army issue us these boots to keep us moving even when the times are tough. Years have passed since that day at the base chapel. I'm out of the Army now, retired from the Green Berets. I'm 40 years old and in college studying for a new career. Sometimes in the middle of a tough assignment, I think of John. The other day I dug my old Army boots out of the closet. I can't wear them anymore. They're faded and cracked, and the leather is splitting. But they are there to remind me, yes, times can get tough, but the tough get through tough times. They just do the next right thing. So today, in honor of Memorial Day, let us give thanks to all our fallen heroes for their sacrifice, for their bravery, and for fighting and protecting us so we can have choices. We can have a voice. We can live in freedom and also in peace. Let's not lose faith in our nation and in our leaders and in one another. And may God bless, because we're all in this together. I'd now like to share another story with you. It's a little more uplifting. It's called The Golden Gift by Patricia Lorenz. And many of you listeners that listen all the time, several months ago I'd shared some stories about God winks. And that is on this line. You know, we all hear voices sometimes and wonder if something keeps telling us to do something and we ignore it. And sometimes we don't ignore it. And this was kind of like a God wink for this man. You will love this story. It's very touching. I never knew whether to pay attention to those voices that pop up into my head every once in a while until I met Art, the Swami of origami, so proclaimed on his business card. A friend had told me that Art was a professional chair canner, and I had this old rocking chair that needed a new cane seat. So when my friend gave me Art's business card, I was surprised to learn that he was also a creative paper folder. When I arrived at his house with my rocker, I discovered a man of many talents. Not only was Art a children's librarian at a large branch of the Milwaukee Public Library, but he also was a professional storyteller and a children's hospital chaplain. His hobby was origami. It was evident all over the house. Delicate and intricate birds, beasts, boxes, houses, and ribbons of brightly colored folded paper were on display everywhere, forming borders along the ceilings in every room. We talked about Art's paper folding and his job as chaplain at the hospital. We talked about life and people. I had learned quickly that Art was a man of great feeling and zest for life. After making arrangements to pick up my chair in a week or so, Art walked me to the door. And he said, "Do you mind if I ask you a question?" he asked slowly. "Oh, no, not at all," I responded. Somehow I knew he was about to ask something important. "Have you ever heard a little voice inside your head telling you to do something you didn't understand?" "Well, I suppose so," I said slowly, not surely exactly what Art meant. "Do you do what the voice told you?" he asked. I was curious as to why he'd asked me this question, so I turned it around and asked him the same thing. "Have you ever heard a voice?" "Yes, I have, and something amazing happened." Art started at the beginning. A few months earlier, as a part-time origami teacher at the Lafarge Lawn Life Learning Institute in Milwaukee, he was asked to represent the school at an exhibit at a large shopping mall in the area. He decided to take along a couple hundred paper cranes that he'd folded to give to people who would stop at this booth asking questions about the origami. A week before the event, however, Art kept hearing a strange voice. It was inside his head, loud and clear, telling him over and over and over to find a piece of gold foil paper and to make a gold origami crane. At first, Art ignored the voice. He was, after all, a man with both feet on the ground, not given to hearing voices or believing in such strange phenomena. But the voice continued every day with the same simple request: find a piece of gold foil and make a golden origami crane. Art kind of rumbled about it and tried to ignore the voice, but then he found himself talking back to the voice. "Why gold foil, anyway? Paper is much easier to work with," he grumbled. The voice continued to haunt him. Art continued to grumble. Finally, the night before the event at the mall, the voice was even more insistent and more specific. "Do it! Make a crane out of gold foil paper, and tomorrow you must give the golden crane to a special person." By now, Art was getting cranky. "What special person? This is ridiculous. How will I know who this special person is?" The voice continued, clear as a star-filled winter sky inside his head. "You'll know who the special person is," the voice answered. Before his common-sense voice could talk him out of it, Art went down to his basement, looked on the shelves where he stored his collection of origami paper. He searched and searched until he found one piece of shiny gold foil paper, 6 inches square. That evening, Art slowly and carefully, painstakingly folded and shaped the unforgiving gold foil until it became as graceful and delicate as a real crane about to take flight. He packed the exquisite bird in a large box, along with about 200 colorful paper cranes he'd made over the previous few weeks. The next day at the mall, dozens upon dozens of people stopped by Art's booth. Youngsters, their parents, middle-aged people, and senior citizens all asked questions about origami. Art demonstrated the art. He folded and unfolded, refolded. He explained the intricate details, the need for sharp creases. He created different animals and unusual shapes for his audience as they strolled by. Then, toward the end of the day, an older woman was standing in front of Art. He'd completely forgotten about the voice in his head that had bugged him during the previous week. But now suddenly he felt a warmth moving up from his toes to his eyebrows. He knew immediately that the woman standing in front of him was the special person. Art had never seen her before, and she didn't say a word as she watched him carefully fold a bright pink piece of paper into a striking paper crane with pointed, graceful wings. Art glanced up at her face, and before he knew what he was doing, his hands were down on the floor in the big box that contained the supply of paper cranes. There it was, the delicate gold foil bird he'd labored over the night before. He retrieved it and carefully placed it in the woman's hand. "I don't know why, but there's been a very loud voice inside me for about a week telling me that I'm supposed to give you this gold crane. The crane, by the way, is the ancient symbol of peace," Art said to the older woman. The woman didn't say a word as she slowly cupped the small hand around the fragile bird as if it were alive. When Art looked up at her face, he saw tears filling her eyes, ready to spill out. Finally, the woman took a deep breath and formed her words slowly. My husband died 3 weeks ago. This is the first time I've been out of the house since his funeral. Today, the woman could hardly get the words out. She wiped her eyes with her free hand, still gently cradling the golden crane with the other. In a moment, she continued. As she looked down at the golden bird, a hint of a smile came across her lips. She spoke very quietly. Today is our golden wedding anniversary. Then the woman looked directly into Art's eyes as she placed her free hand on top of Art's own. In a clear voice, she said, Thank you for this beautiful gift. Now I know that my dear husband is at peace. Now I'm at peace. This bird, this symbol of peace, is God's messenger. Don't you see? The voice you heard, it was the voice of God, and this beautiful golden crane is a gift from the Almighty. It is the most wonderful 50th wedding anniversary present I could have received. Thank you for listening to the voice inside your head, to the voice of God. That's how my friend Art learned to listen very carefully when a little voice within him tells him to do something. He may not understand at the time, and that's how Art convinced me to do the same. And I've learned that when you listen very carefully, it's amazing what you'll hear. So very true, people. So you listen very carefully, because someone may be sending you a message that you have a mission to fulfill. Before I close today, I'd like to share one more story with you. It's a little bit different. It's a funny story. It's about embarrassing moments, something to laugh at. You know, we've had a lot of stuff going on in our lives right now, and we need a bit of laughter. But it was an embarrassing situation, and I can't believe this person wrote this story, but I need to share it with you because you need a laugh. And the author of the story is called Heather Ray Roden, and it's called Restaurant and Rules. And it just caught my eye because, you know, with all this going on and the restaurants opening, I thought, oh, restaurant rules. But I think you'll just have a good laugh out of this one. And this little saying here, Keith Waterhouse wrote this and said, I turn over a new leaf every day, but the blots show through. Anyhow, we'll start the story now. The December chill in Vancouver had us bundled in bulky sweaters as my husband Gord and I buckled our 2 little girls in their car seats. We were off to experience a wonderful dinner in a restaurant highly recommended by friends. Eating out was a luxury for us, so we were excited about our evening. But there was a bothersome issue. I was 8 months pregnant and constantly tired and bloated. It was hard to get comfortable these days, and my family waited patiently as I adjusted the seat a few times. As we made our trip up the North Shore Highway, snow-capped mountains rose majestically before us, and the white caps on the water lapped against the boats in the marinas. The massive city of Vancouver looked like a miniature village in the distance. It was spellbinding. Even our little ones seemed to appreciate it. Although the girls were only 2 and 4 years old, we spent a few moments during the drive reviewing restaurant rules. 2 little heads bobbed in agreement that nothing but good manners and quiet voices would be displayed throughout dinner. I was quite happy when the 1-hour drive was over. It turned out the baby boy that I carried would enter this world at 12 pounds, so it was no wonder that every joint and muscle was stiff and sore. With great difficulty, I struggled out of the car and waddled into the restaurant, leaving Gord to manage the girls. Thankfully, there was no wait, and we were quickly directed to a table tucked into a comfortable corner. Before the waiter had come to take time to take our orders, I had to rush off to use the facilities, and that is when it happened. I was washing my hands in the restroom, and I noticed a statue beside the sinks. It was a naked man. And even more shocking was a strategically placed fig leaf on a hinge. Now, I was pretty sure I knew what was under that leaf, but having always been inquisitive, kind of being the inquisitive type, I couldn't curb my curiosity. I watched as several women chatted while touching up lipstick and washing their hands. Not even one of them glanced at that statue. I found that quite unbelievable. What was wrong with these people? A tiny niggling of warning prickled at the back of my mind, but I ignored it and plotted my course. I decided to wash my hands very slowly until the woman had finished up and exited out the door. But before long, the women were gone, and it was just the statue and me. Pressing my huge belly up to the counter, I reached over to quickly lift the leaf before anyone else came in. I didn't need to dally, just a quick peek would do. As my hand firmly grasped and lifted the leaf, a loud, lawn-piercing alarm sounded suddenly. Strong enough to shake a building, I dropped the leaf like it was on fire. With paralyzing horror, I knew immediately the leaf was connected to that alarm. This was obviously someone's twisted sense of humor. Now what was I going to do? Being the only one in the restroom leaving now would alert everyone that I had lifted the leaf, and in obvious condition. Lord have mercy, I needed a plan. It was not the first time I had found myself in a predicament, so I drew in all my faculties to find the solution. As the wheels turned, an idea formed. I decided to wait for a diversion and keep washing my hands until someone unsuspectingly came in, a soul came in, and I hoped it would be soon, as the recent adrenaline rush caused me to think I might need to use the facilities again, and that could mean missing the opportune moment when they arrived. Before long, 2 ladies came in, and I continued to wash my hands with purpose as they did what they needed to do, and then made their way to the sink. Ignoring their smiling glances my way, I put more effort into my performance and added soap. I knew this must end soon. My fingers were turning into prunes. When they finished up and left, I grabbed the opportunity and hurried to slip in behind them. To my horror, smirkingly, busboys and waiters had lined up along the walls by the washrooms to honor the return of the bell ringer and celebrate the lifting of the leaf. Their grins in my direction said it all. They knew it was me. Waddling by like a walrus on a mission, my face burned with embarrassment. Then it got worse. They started to clap and cheer. There was no place to hide. Entering the eating area, I became aware of several smirks directed at me. I searched frantically for my little family, finding them again. I kept my face down and slid awkwardly into my chair. Apparently, the little girls were remembering their restaurant manners, which only made me feel worse. I turned to Gord and whispered, did you hear a loud ringing bell out here a few minutes ago? Yeah, he garbled with a mouthful of bread. It was weird. I wonder what that was all about. He swallowed. Hey, what took you so long anyway? I murmured quietly, it's a long story. I'll fill you in on the way home. We continued our meal and we enjoyed our dinner. My embarrassment subsided and the humor of it all began to hit me. My giggles started, and at Gord's questioning look, I choked on my series of unfortunate events. His hearty laugh joined mine, and the little girls picked up on the hilarity of the moment, chuckling along with us. Over time, we have some great laughs over the incident. Through the years, I've realized it is not just an embarrassing story, it's a human one. Sometimes we take ourselves too seriously and miss out on the funny side of life. Humor heals and helps us through the rougher times. It wasn't the last time I embarrassed myself, but it certainly stands out as one of the most memorable. But one tragic disappointment haunts me to this day. I'm still not sure what was under that leaf. Anyhow, so when I saw new restaurant rules, I thought it would be a different story, but I thought, I've got to share this with my listeners because we all need a good laugh, especially now, to kind of cheer us up and look on the brighter things of life. So I love all you guys out there for tuning in every month and listening to my crazy antics, and stories. I hope you enjoy them. And I hope it lifts your spirits and makes you feel better. And I appreciate you all so much. And I thank you so much for tuning in and listening to Life's Treasures and Golden Moments. So, you kids and you people out there, take care of yourselves, okay? Stay well. Until next time, take care and may God bless. This is Natalie Silver with Life Treasures and Golden Moments.